This is John W. Whitehead, author of Battlefield America, The War on the American People, bringing you a message about the state of our nation. If you were a leader, or let's say an oligarchy, that controlled government, and you want to control the future of the country, you want to make sure that people lined up when you wanted to line up, salute when you wanted to salute, go to war when you want to go to war. Never question too much, no protest, because protests, free speech, stuff like that can cause a little havoc. You don't want that. You want order. You want them to go to the store, buy things, and make sure the economy moves forward. How do you make sure that these people will never revolt or question things like people in the past have? How would you control that? Where would you start? Basically, where leaders of the past who have erected regimes start, they start in the schools. They start with controlling the minds of young people. We're seeing that very thing happen in the United States today. There are 98,000 public schools. Just to focus on the public schools where we're seeing many of the problems I'm going to be talking about. What are we seeing in those public schools today? From the moment a child enters one of the nation's 98,000 public schools to the moment a student graduates, they're exposed to a steady diet of zero tolerance policies that are very draconian, that even criminalize childish behavior, overreaching anti-bully laws that criminalize speech, school resource officers or policemen walking the halls who are tasering, disciplining, or arresting so-called disorderly students. You have standardized testing that emphasizes rote answers over critical thinking. You have a politically correct mindset that teaches young people to censor themselves and those around them. And now extensive biometric and surveillance systems that, coupled with the rest of the stuff we're talking about, acclimate young people to a world in which they have no freedom of thought, speech, or movement. By the time a young person graduates from public school in this country, nearly 1 in 3 have been arrested. Over 3 million are expelled alone in the United States on an annual basis. Let me give you an example. A Virginia 6th grader, he was the son of 2 public school teachers. He was a member of the school's so-called gifted program. He was suspended for a year after school officials found a leaf which they thought might have been marijuana in his backpack. Come to find out, it was not marijuana. A fact that the school officials knew almost immediately. But the 11-year-old kid was still kicked out of school. He was charged with marijuana possession in juvenile court. He was enrolled in an alternative school away from his friends. He was subjected to twice daily searches for drugs and forced to be evaluated for substance abuse programs. Kids are actually being kicked out of school for so-called imitation controlled substances, such as breath mints, oregano, powdered sugar. Then there are the crazy zero tolerance policies against weapons. To give you an example of a case that I actually worked on at the Rutherford Institute, a little boy named Johnny Jones in Ohio, right before Christmas a couple years ago, walked up to the teacher's desk. What did he do? He got a piece of paper. On his way back, his best friend in class went, didn't make a sound. These are 4th graders, by the way, 10-year-olds. Our client, Johnny Jones, responded by doing a bow and arrow. He shot a bow and arrow. He'd seen the movie Brave. The teacher saw him do the bow and arrow, the fake bow and arrow, no sound, by the way. He was just goofing around with his buddy. He was taken outside the class and charged, believe it or not, in the principal's office with a criminal violation of the school's zero tolerance policy. What? He had a weapon. Ridiculous, of course. We intervened. Got some good media that people in the media thought this was crazy, and it was crazy. Finally, the school backed off and took this off his record. Again, if someone hadn't stepped in, though, and this is how crazy things are looking in the schools, he would have had on his record for the rest of his life a weapons violation. Even acts of kindness can get you in trouble in the schools today. One 13-year-old kid was given detention for exposing the school to liability for sharing his lunch with a hungry friend. A 3rd grader was suspended for shaving her head in sympathy for a friend who had lost her hair to chemotherapy. And then there was the high school senior who was suspended for saying "bless you" after a fellow classmate sneezed. And now in recent years, we've seen the proliferation of school resource officers walking the hallways of schools. In other words, police officers equipped with weapons, tasers, all kinds of dangerous weapons. And what we're seeing is, in a number of cases, kids getting punched in the face for so-called insubordination, all because of so-called childish behavior, something that I never saw when I was in school. In fact, in my school, I never saw police officers walking the hallways. I'm a former infantry officer. When we guarded the base, an infantry officer is fighting war, that's what I did, and I trained troops to fight in war. We guarded the base from the outside. We knew that if someone was going to get into a base, they had to be stopped from the outside. We didn't put armed guards inside the post, always ruling and trying to control the troops. We knew that the threat was on the outside. A better resource here would be to put, if you want armed guards outside the school to keep a occasional crazy shooter, you do that. But when you put these officers inside the schools, patrolling the schools looking for childish behavior, you're going to get people arrested. You're going to get people with criminal records who, by the way, should never even be touched by a police officer. What this has created is a problem called the school-to-prison pipeline. Indeed, one study found that being suspended or expelled made a student nearly 3 times more likely to come into contact with the juvenile justice system within the next year. Nearly 40% of those young people who are arrested, believe this or not, will serve time in a private prison where they'll make products for multi-corporations. Some schools that have had a lot of cops walking the hallways, and this is proven, have removed the policemen inside the hallways generally. Kept a few maybe, but got rid of most of them who are watching for childish behavior. In some cases, believe it or not, in inner city schools, kids getting arrested, charged, and put in the juvenile system has dropped by 90%. 90%. So what am I saying here? Is it a good idea to have policemen walking the halls looking for kids arguing, debating a teacher, getting slammed down on their face for arguing with a cop in a school, getting in trouble, getting a thing on their record, something charged for simply cutting in line in the cafeteria? Is that what we want? And here's the other problem I see. We're acclimating kids to live in a police state. That's obviously what we're seeing. They're afraid to move. They're afraid to say the wrong word these days. They're afraid to point their finger and play cops and robbers like all kids used to do on the playground. Because why? Because they'll get in trouble. They'll get a criminal record. They might even get arrested for it. I mean, if you bring oregano in for pizza day to put on your pizza, watch out. You might get a criminal record. You might get arrested and thrown out of school, even though you're not guilty of something. So what are we doing to the kids? We're making them stop thinking, debating. We're stopping them from being citizens. If we want a free citizenry, then let's treat them like free citizens. Let's not put them in prisons, what we call schools, where cops are walking the hallways and arresting them and slamming them down, or even tasering them and sometimes shooting them. Is that what we want in America? It's time to wake up, folks. If we don't change this system, I'm afraid we're going to repeat history. And when we wake up one day, we're going to go, what happened to our freedoms? For more information about the Rutherford Institute, visit us at www.rutherford.org.